The day I left, the entire household was bustling with preparations to welcome the new mistress. Several maids snickered at my retreating back. Does she even deserve a proper status? Later I heard that after the wedding night, the young master ordered his servant, summon Aing, to temper her temper. If she improves, elevate her to concubine. The servant looked utterly shocked. Aing? She redeemed herself and married half a month ago. A month before the young master's wedding, I was summoned to the old mistress's quarters. The old mistress was renowned for her compassion. On every festival, even the Bodhisattva's birthday, she would distribute rewards to us servants. But after that incident, I truly understood even the kindest master can decide our fate with a single word. Entering the main hall, I saw no sign of the old lady. Only her most trusted servant, Auntie Zhang. "Hey, you're here." Nanny Zhang greeted me with a smile. "The lady is resting after lunch. She specifically asked that you be served some refreshments while you wait." I kept my head bowed, my peripheral vision catching the exquisitely crafted pastries on the table. My knees buckled, and I knelt down. "What are you doing?" Nanny Zhang stepped forward to help me up. The Buddha's light shines throughout the old master's courtyard. I bow low. "Mistress, this servant wishes to kneel here and pray for the Ku family's blessings." Zhang Ma sighed, glancing at me with words unsaid. "Today, you must answer carefully." Her eyes held a clear trace of worry. 2 hours later, the old madam awoke from her afternoon rest. Stepping into the main hall, she saw me kneeling before the Buddha statue, hands pressed together, eyes closed in deep devotion. Hemming, "What are you praying for?" Hearing her voice, I immediately turned and performed a deep bow before the old madam. "Your Excellency," I replied, "this servant prays for the master's wedding next month to proceed smoothly, and that the new lady may soon bear an heir for the Ku family. Rise." The old lady tapped her staff lightly on the floor. "You do know your place. But do you know why I summoned you today?" I bowed slightly, my eyes still lowered. "This servant is dull-witted. Please enlighten me." "Your Excellency, you've served young Master Zhe for over 3 years and know his temperament best," the matriarch said slowly. "That wretched maid's affair was resolved thanks to your alertness." A sharp gleam flashed in her eyes as she recalled the past. "It was merely my duty," I replied respectfully. "Next month marks young Master Zhe's wedding. It's time to arrange 2 concubines for him." The matriarch's voice suddenly rose. "You've been in his quarters the longest. Which maidens do you deem suitable?" That tone, leaving no room for doubt, made my heart tighten. Today's ordeal would be no easy pass. I bit my lip and whispered softly, "This servant believes the candidates must meet 3 criteria. "Oh." The matriarch's eyebrows arched slightly. "First, they must be houseborn. Second, their appearance need only be above average. Third," I paused, "they absolutely must not harbor affection for the young master." The matriarch's teacup jolted in her hand. "The first 2 are reasonable enough. But why the third?" "Concubines are merely granted a title by the master's grace." I lowered my gaze, my voice even softer. "If she becomes too attached to the master, at best she'll cause jealousy and disrupt his mood. At worst, she'll drive a wedge between husband and wife." Before I could finish, the edge of a garment behind the screen stirred. I understood immediately. It was Xiaolin, the lady's most cherished granddaughter, the cousin bride to be married into the household next month. It's rare to find one with such insight. The matriarch's tone softened noticeably. "In that case, who in the household do you deem most suitable?" I respectfully offered the names of 2 honest, dutiful maidservants. "Leave this matter to you. A generous reward awaits if you succeed." Though the matriarch spoke thus, she hesitated to dismiss me. I knew today's matter was far from settled. At this point, I had no choice but to take a gamble. Summoning my courage, I knelt heavily. "What is this?" the old lady asked in surprise. My voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. "Serving my master is my duty. I should not be seeking reward for it." At this point, I bit my lip, gathering what felt like all the courage I possessed in my lifetime. Suddenly lifting my head, I declared, "But today, this servant wishes to share in the young master's good fortune." The old lady's expression darkened abruptly. Her hands tightened fiercely around her scepter. Her voice laced with icy shards. "Oh? Explain yourself clearly. This servant wishes. Redeem my freedom and marry." My voice trembled. "The betrothal arranged years ago in my family, I'd long assumed he was either dead or had forgotten it. So I'd given up hope. Yet last month, that fiancé actually came looking for me. Though he's disabled, he's saved enough silver to redeem my freedom." My eyes welled with tears. "I'll be 18 next year, and I wish to bear him an heir." I kowtowed 3 times, pleading for the old lady's blessing. The old lady scrutinized me with puzzled eyes. After a long silence, she finally nodded. "Very well. Granted." I prostrated myself. "Thank you for your kindness, old lady. I am eternally grateful." The matriarch beckoned me forward, removing a jade hairpin from her hair and handing it to me. Its lustrous green hue must be worth a commoner's annual sustenance. "I know all the misdeeds Zaire has committed." The matriarch sighed. "I thought today you would seek a proper status for yourself. But instead you've chosen to leave the estate." I hastily took a half-step back. "This servant is deeply humbled. The young master treats his servants with kindness. I merely had the good fortune to be assigned to serve his writing needs. No different from any other. Such a precious gift is truly beyond my worth." The scrutinizing look in the old lady's eyes finally softened, replaced by a hint of approval. "Take it. I had intended to elevate you to concubine once Linner entered the household." She pressed the jade hairpin into my palm. "Since you've found a good match, consider this my gift for your trousseau." My back was already drenched in cold sweat, my undergarments clinging wetly to my skin. The matriarch's cloudy yet shrewd eyes swept over me with apparent casualness. Yet every word and glance was a test. She wasn't genuinely selecting a concubine at all. She was clearly waiting for me to walk straight into her trap. I clenched my palms tightly. Had I foolishly demanded recognition earlier, I'd likely be dragged out by now. How could I still stand here listening to her gentle words? I took the jade hairpin with both hands, kneeling once more to bow in gratitude. The old lady stroked her teacup and spoke slowly. "Satsai's wedding is imminent. To avoid complications, this matter must remain unknown to him. You shall remain in the courtyard to serve this month. But be cautious. On the day of the wedding, you may leave the estate." "Your servant obeys," I replied respectfully. Being granted my freedom was already an unexpected blessing. What harm could one more month bring? After all, the end was near. The old lady nodded with satisfaction, but I caught sight of the figure behind the screen finally retreating. No doubt the future young mistress could now rest easy. As I stepped out of the old lady's courtyard, the sun still hung high in the sky, finally warming my chilled back. I walked toward the Buddhist hall, pressed my palms together, and bowed repeatedly with deep devotion, praying to the Buddha that the wish I had just made would come true. Truthfully, I had deceived the old lady. During those 2 hours, kneeling before the Buddha, I had prayed for only one thing: that both my brother and I might live. 7 years ago, war ravaged the borderlands, leaving only my brother and me to cling to life. To save him, I sold myself to a slave trader. I remember the day we parted, clutching my brother's hand tightly. I uttered only one last plea. "No matter what, you must survive." After many twists and turns, I was sold into the Ning'an Marquis's household. This marquisate is a peculiar place. The old marquis once indulged in debauchery, nearly squandering the family fortune, and even caused a scandal by favoring a concubine over his wife. Only when the old lady of the house gritted her teeth to uphold the family honor, then nurtured the Marquis to pass the imperial examinations and enter officialdom, did the household gradually prosper. Having witnessed his mother suffer at the hands of the concubines since childhood, the Marquis vowed his own children would never endure such treatment. Thus, the household remained deliberately small. Besides the principal wife, only one legitimate concubine and 2 secondary consorts resided there. Life after entering the estate proved far easier than I'd imagined, and I even regained some color in my cheeks. Each month, I carefully saved my allowance, dreaming of the day I could reunite with my younger brother and buy a humble shelter from the wind and rain. For me, such stable days were good days. Every single one. Compared to the hardships of fleeing, what did it matter to wash clothes in the Marquis's household? What did it matter to sweep the courtyards? Thus, I lived peacefully for 4 years, rising step by step from a lowly maid in the laundry room to a second-class maid in the main ladies' quarters. One day, the maid who attended to the young master's writing tools caught a chill. Since I had learned a few characters from my scholar father in my youth, I was temporarily assigned to replace her. Little did I know that this temporary assignment would last 3 years. Through our daily interactions, the young master gradually developed feelings for me. My duties grew lighter, and through my master's favor, I enjoyed many comforts. Back then, I felt truly blessed to have found such a kind and generous master. I remember the day he summoned me to attend him after his bath. I hesitated only briefly before agreeing. What did it matter to become his concubine? A stable life was a blessing in itself. Leaving the estate might only bring greater hardship. For 3 years, the young master protected me and cherished me. In those intimate moments, his promises clouded my judgment. I truly believed he regarded me as his wife. It wasn't until that incident occurred that I jolted awake. The sky over this mansion has always belonged to the master. And I was merely a servant who survived by pleasing him. Dazed, I returned to the young master's quarters, ate a hasty meal, then retreated to the study to organize the writing implements. During the day, the young master attends school and is never at the manor. This final month demands utmost caution. I must fulfill my duties diligently while avoiding any time alone with him. I carefully rolled up each of the young master's scrolls, securing them with silk ribbons. When I reached the highest shelf, my foot slipped on the stool. Just as I was about to fall, I suddenly landed in a warm embrace. The young master lifted me horizontally, burying his face in my neck. His breath hot. Is Aang still angry with me? Such tasks are for servants. Why climb so high yourself? I wriggled free from his embrace. I am a servant. His nose brushed my earlobe. Enough. Aang. Don't sulk with me. Talking at cross purposes. I shifted the subject. Why did you return to the manor at this hour today? I knew you were thinking of me. He suddenly set me down on the desk, pressing his entire body against my thighs. Rest assured, I won't deceive you. Once Linner enters the household, I'll have her carry you in as a concubine. Her nature is gentle and compliant, nothing like her domineering mother. Hearing these words, the weight that had long hung heavy in my heart finally dropped. How foolish I once was, naively believing he harbored even a shred of genuine affection for me. That day when I brought up the matter of a concubine, he still replied with that same weight a little longer. Looking back now, I should thank him for his cold-heartedness. Had it not been for that, had he let even a hint slip in front of his family, I wouldn't have been granted permission to leave so easily today. Only I know the truth, I can wait no longer. I must leave the young master. All these years of drinking bowl after bowl of contraceptive concoctions had already drained my body dry. If this continued, I feared even my lifespan would be shortened. So I entrusted Uncle Sun, who delivered vegetables to the mansion daily, to send a message to Lu Chao. I asked him if his earlier promise to marry me still stood. Lu Chao was born with 6 fingers, deemed an ill omen by the villagers. Originally just a menial laborer at Taihe Clinic, his innate brilliance allowed him to memorize hundreds of herbs merely by listening to their sounds. Dr. Li, recognizing his talent, made an exception and took him as an apprentice. I recall the day I went to the academy to deliver ink and brushes for the young master, only to find him cornered in an alley by fellow students. Perhaps seeing in him the helplessness I'd felt during our flight from disaster, I used the home mansion's name to scare them off. Later, I encountered him several times at the academy delivering 6 spirit decoction. Last month, he suddenly stopped me, saying I was the first who didn't despise his extra fingers, and asked if I'd marry him. But I didn't respond immediately then. I still clung to a sliver of hope for the young master, leaving the estate might not necessarily be better. It wasn't until that day when the young master once again evaded the matter of taking a concubine that I sought out Lu Chao. If you truly wish to marry me, there's no need to save up redemption money. I have my own savings. You only need to provide a person. I had already resolved that if he refused to marry me, I would find a way to make the young master despise me, even if it meant being banished to work as a lowly maid. As long as I didn't have to drink that potion to prevent conception. As long as I could scrape by within these high walls. Fortunately, heaven never closes all doors. This morning, before going to the old lady's quarters, I received his reply, "Come anytime." Recalling it now, fear and relief still surged through me like waves. I pushed hard against the young master's chest. "Young master." In broad daylight. He chuckled softly, his warm breath brushing my ear. "When did Aoying become so shy? It's not like we haven't done this in daylight." He leaned in to kiss me. I turned my head away and declared resolutely, "But I truly don't want to drink the contraceptive potion anymore." This statement dampened his enthusiasm. His expression darkened instantly. He flung his wide sleeves angrily. "How many times have I told you there are reasons for this? It seems I've spoiled you beyond measure." The door slammed shut with a deafening crash. As he left, he spat. "If you can't see reason, don't bother coming to see me." The young master assumed I was merely spoiled and throwing a tantrum over the matter of our relationship. Little did he know, provoking his anger was precisely my intention. The more furious he became, the less likely he was to summon me these days. The longer I could endure this final month in peace, the more my hopes would grow like wild grass, 100-fold, 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold. And now, the thought in my heart has never been clearer or more intense. I must leave this marquise mansion. Leave completely. Alive. After that, I met with Lu Chao. He brought silver to redeem my bondage. The old lady, seeing his 6 fingers, feared I might change my mind and stay. She refused to accept the redemption money. She only said she remembered my years of devoted service and handed the bond of servitude directly to Lu Chao. When I saw him off at the side gate, he immediately returned both the bond and the silver to me. I accepted only the contract. Pushing the silver back at him, "Use it to buy yourself a house." The savings I'd accumulated over the years had barely been enough for my release and a small cottage. Now that the Marquis' household didn't require the ransom, it saved me a considerable sum. Clutching the silver, Lu Chao, this man standing 7 feet tall, had tears welling in his eyes. "Lady Tian, I truly, deeply ashamed to still be using your money to buy these things. We are family now, there's no need for formalities." I pressed the pouch embroidered with twin lotus flowers into his palm. "From now on, call me Haiying." Haiying was the name the steward gave me when I entered the mansion. Now that I've gained my freedom, I should naturally return to my birth name. He cradled the pouch in both hands as if holding some rare treasure. "Haiying. I shall wear it close to my heart every day." Suddenly straightening his back, his voice trembled yet remained resolute. "Rest assured, though I, Lu Chao, am no great talent, I will follow the 3 letters and 6 rights, welcoming you into my home with honor and dignity. I will never let anyone look down on you in the slightest. I gazed into his eyes, shining with emotion, and suddenly smiled. I too changed my address. Ah Chow. I am truly happy to become family with you. These words came straight from my heart. In the Ning'an Marquis' household, the maidservants were bound by irrevocable contracts, leaving no room for redemption. With no relatives to aid me, no fellow villagers to support me, and this treacherous world, even if I had silver, I could find no trustworthy soul to come and redeem me. Had Lu Chao not been willing to marry me, my fate would have been nothing but death. With the young master's wedding approaching, the mansion grew livelier day by day. Everyone scrambles to work and stand out, leaving my study unusually quiet. As usual, I carefully polish the inkstone in the study while the young master is out during the day. Suddenly, footsteps approach outside the courtyard. I hastily stuff the rag into my sleeve and turn to leave, only to see the cleaning maid entering to change the incense. "Sister Ing," she whispered. "The young master instructed before leaving this morning that you must retrieve that set of new interpretations of the 3 classics." "Understood," I replied, though my heart sank. That book was always carried by the young master himself. Asking me to find it meant. And the maid hesitated. "Master said once you find it, you must personally deliver it to his bedchamber." My grip on the rag tightened. Sure enough, heaven wouldn't let me escape so easily. I bowed in acknowledgement. After the maid withdrew from the study, I moved only slowly toward the bookshelf. My fingertips brushed row after row of spines, knowing full well the new commentary on the 3 classics wasn't on the shelf at all. It was tucked inside the young master's satchel right now. I'd packed it there myself yesterday. As the lamps were lit, footsteps finally drew near. I pretended not to notice, half my body buried deep within the bookshelf, deliberately knocking down a few insignificant volumes. "Ah-ing." The young master's voice came from behind me. Wasn't I to have the book delivered to my chambers? "What are you doing here?" Only then did I turn in panic, my sleeves still dusty from brushing against the shelves, my face plastered with just the right amount of bewilderment. My lord, this servant was still searching. Perhaps I misplaced it while organizing the books recently. For the moment, I simply cannot find it. He fell silent for a moment, his gaze heavy and pressing down. After a long pause, he finally said, "Very well, then." Shifting his tone abruptly, a faint hum of emotionless disdain escaped him. "Since you cannot find it, why not come to my chambers and search there?" "Yes, sir." My heart sank violently. I lowered my head even further, my voice muffled as I forced out the words, "This servant is dull-witted, unable to handle even such a small matter. I truly have no face to disturb the young master's peace. It is entirely my fault. Tonight, even if I turn the study upside down, I will find it for the young master." I deliberately laced my tone with a stubborn defiance. Sure enough, the young master's voice turned icy. "Very well. Very well indeed. Ah-ing, you're becoming more and more headstrong." He took a step closer, the hem of his luxurious robe nearly brushing my knees. I bit down hard on the soft flesh inside my lip, forcing myself to stand perfectly still. "Since you're so eager to search." His voice brimmed with fury, laced with a condescending, scornful sneer born of defiance. "Then stay right here in the study and search thoroughly for me. If you don't find it, you needn't return." His footsteps echoed with anger as he retreated, vanishing into the depths of the corridor. Only when his sound faded did I slowly unclench my tightly balled fists. Success. Infuriating him, making him believe I was sulking and ungrateful, proved far more effective than any excuse. This final hurdle was temporarily avoided. The cost? I had thoroughly angered him. The day before the young master's wedding, Zhang, the matron by the old lady's side, intercepted me at the side gate. The entire marquise residence was in utter chaos, and no one noticed the two of us standing in the corner. Her fingers slipped from her sleeve, swiftly tucking 2 silver notes into my sleeve pocket. "Auntie." "What?" "Take them." She cut me off, a fleeting softness crossing her weathered face. "Consider it an old woman's contribution to your dowry." My throat suddenly tightened. Head bowed. I found myself utterly speechless. Aunt Zhang gently patted my hand. "You're a girl blessed with good fortune. That day, I saw your fiancé. His features are upright and honest. He's a reliable man. I've spent most of my life in this household judging people, and I've rarely been wrong." My eyes grew warm. I owe it all to Auntie's guidance that day. Otherwise, I fear I might have. "Shoo." She suddenly pressed her index finger to her lips. "It's because you're quick-witted. Buying your freedom to become a proper wife is far better than—" She paused, her voice growing quieter. "Ending up like me, trapped in this mansion for life. Even the daughters I bore couldn't escape a fate of servitude. What good is the old lady's affection if it can't change that? When push comes to shove, she'd be killed without a second thought." I hesitated a moment before asking softly, "Is Lady Yu doing better now?" After that incident, she became completely deranged. Zhang Ma sighed, tears welling in her eyes. I begged the old lady for mercy, sacrificing my own dignity, to free her from slavery and let her return home to recuperate. She suddenly smiled. It was fate, really. After returning home, she gradually recovered. Now she lives contentedly in the countryside, no longer dreaming of climbing into some noble household. I clasped her hand and nodded softly. "That is good." Nanny Zhang suddenly lowered her voice. "And you? Have you been having nightmares lately?" I pressed my lips together and shook my head. "Not for a long time." "That's good." She smiled with relief. "The matter with Lady How was never your fault. Why burden yourself with it?" Her eyes reddened. "After we part today, we may never meet again. My girl, live well once you're out there." After seeing Zhang Ma off, I returned to my room to pack my belongings. Truthfully, there wasn't much to gather. The jewelry, personal trinkets, and finery the young master had bestowed upon me, I had already given to Lu Chao to sell for money. Only a few old garments remained, along with some odds and ends. The bundle was small, leaving the room clean and uncluttered. Lying on the bed, I slept through the night without dreams. I hadn't lied to Aunt Zhang. Ever since I stopped blaming myself, that blood-soaked Hao Ying had never haunted my dreams again. Aunt Zhang hadn't always treated me with such kindness. When I first came to serve the young master, her gaze always held a hint of scrutiny, even a trace of hostility. The turning point came with that once unremarkable girl, Hao Ying, niece of Lady Hao, the concubine in the Marquis's chambers. Her family had suffered misfortune, and she'd come to the capital seeking refuge with her aunt. She'd been the most cautious and careful of all. But one day, after she accidentally fell into the water, she became a different person. She began ranting about equality for all and the illegality of human trafficking, utterly mad talk. She also kept trespassing into places she shouldn't have been, like the young master's study and the Marquis's outer courtyard. When the Marquis's mansion held a banquet, someone of Hao Ying's standing shouldn't have been invited. Yet she stormed in clutching a poem scroll, reciting aloud, "With leaves that last 1,000 years, I'll forever raise a cup to 10,000 years." The assembled guests gasped in shock. The Marquis's wife turned pale, slamming her hand on the table as she rose. The current emperor had seized the throne by killing his elder brother years ago. Before his death, the former crown prince cursed him to die young. In recent years, His Majesty's health had steadily declined, confining him to his sickbed and deepening his paranoia. Whenever someone offered congratulations on his boundless longevity, he interpreted it as a veiled insult about his impending death. Numerous officials had already been demoted for similar missteps. In such a sensitive period, the great aristocratic families were most wary of such matters. Yet Hao Yingying had dared to recite a birthday ode aloud before the entire assembly. Such a reckless act, if exploited by those with ulterior motives, could surely bring punishment upon the Marquis's household. The First Lady immediately roared in fury. How could this madwoman be allowed to escape? Drag her away at once. She then turned to her attendants and barked, "All on duty today, go receive your punishment." Her outburst even implicated her aunt, who served as a concubine, resulting in 3 strokes of the cane. She remained bedridden for a full month before regaining her strength. As for Hao Yingying, the First Lady ordered her confined to the woodshed. The next day, she vanished, leaving only a note reading, "Depriving one of personal liberty is a crime. Long live freedom." That day, I was grinding ink for the young master when a commotion erupted outside. Hao Yingying had somehow burst into the study, pointing at the young master and shouting, "You feudal remnants!" The young master's face turned ashen. Yet, unusually, he didn't order her dragged out. Later, finding her temperament novel, he grew ever closer to her. She insisted daily on bathing, so the young master rewarded her with many pieces of the finest silver-threaded charcoal. But her aunt, Madame Hao, had only one lowly maid assigned to her courtyard, so waiting for hot water always took ages. At first, she waited patiently, but later she began cursing the little maid. I sighed inwardly. Such a temperament would be difficult to handle. It would be best to keep my distance from now on. Until that day, after she and the young master had been intimate, he ordered me to bring her the contraceptive soup. "I won't drink it," she sneered, shooting me a contemptuous glance. "What do you know? This so-called pregnancy-preventing decoction in ancient times is actually mercury poison. Drinking too much won't just make you infertile, it'll slowly poison you. You might just drop dead one day." I gasped in horror. I'd been drinking this concoction for nearly 3 years, no wonder my body grew weaker and my cycles grew sparse. If I continued, I might truly meet my end, as she claimed. "You must drink it." I forced back trembling as I pushed the bowl forward. "Before the young mistress arrives, there must be no legitimate heir." I watched her silently, thinking this situation would inevitably require more maneuvering. "Fine. Fine." She snatched the bowl back, muttering curses. In this godforsaken place, giving birth could easily mean death for both mother and child. My fingers tightened unconsciously. I'd thought her a scheming woman who'd stop at nothing to climb the ranks. Yet when it came to matters of life and death, she proved more clear-headed than anyone. Later, when the young master's novelty with her wore off and he gradually stopped paying her any mind, I never saw her again. As the gifts of fine charcoal and brocade ceased, she could no longer bathe daily as she once did. The courtyard erupted in chaos. "Useless thing! How could you only secure a position as a concubine?" she screamed, pointing an accusing finger at Hausher. "You can't even manage to let me bathe every day." She turned to berate the attendant maid. "You snob. Now that I've lost my privileges, you won't even boil water properly." The maid finally snapped, flinging the firewood to the ground. "Do you know how much silver and charcoal it takes to heat a basin of water? Now that your bribes have stopped, we only get ordinary charcoal according to Madame Hao's allowance. Of course it takes longer to heat. Besides, we need charcoal for cooking too. If we used it all for your bath, would anyone have anything to eat?" Her voice grew angrier as she spoke, and she finally tore off her apron. "You go on about equality all day long, yet when it comes to bossing people around, you're more arrogant than the real masters. No matter what, Madam How is still the master's official concubine. And you? You're just an outsider living under someone else's roof. How dare you shout and scream like this? Realizing her outburst wouldn't win her any favor, Hao Yingying calmed down. Yet barely a few days passed before she stormed into the main hall, loudly proclaiming she bore the young master's child and demanding the Marquis's household cease its harsh treatment. This occurred during the young master's betrothal negotiations with his cousin, whose father held great favor with the emperor. Should such scandal spread, what face would the Ning'an Marquis's household retain? The principal wife immediately ordered her dragged away. Coincidentally, the cousin's mother, the Marquis's own sister, arrived for a visit at that very moment. Upon hearing the news, the aunt flew into a rage and immediately summoned the estate physician to take her pulse. She is indeed with child, the physician reported, trembling. For a young master from a distinguished family to have a concubine before marriage was not unheard of. But to produce an illegitimate firstborn son was to slap the face of his future legitimate wife. The noble lady demanded the young master come out and explain himself. Meanwhile, the first lady vented all her fury on Yunyang, the daughter of Zhang Yang, the matron on duty that day. Useless! She screamed, hurling her teacup to the floor. You couldn't even restrain a madwoman. What good are you? With that, she ordered Yunyang to be sold off. Nanny Zhang immediately knelt to beg for mercy, banging her head on the floor again and again. But the old madam, this loyal servant who had attended her from youth to old age, turned her face away, refusing even to glance at them. I understood. She wanted to shift all blame onto others, so her precious daughter wouldn't hold her precious grandson accountable. Originally, I only needed to wait for the young master's return to clarify that Hao Yingying had taken the contraceptive potion punctually each time. I needn't wade into this murky mess. But seeing the blood on Zhang Laonyang's forehead, watching Yunyang's vacant, dazed expression, a wave of sorrow, like a fox mourning a hare's death, suddenly washed over me. I could no longer hold back and knelt forward. In response to your question, Madam, Miss Hao, every single time, drank the contraceptive potion right before the servant's eyes. The crowd immediately searched Hao Yingying's quarters and indeed discovered the fake pregnancy powder hidden in a secret compartment beneath her bed. Enraged, the first lady ordered Hao Yingying to receive 20 severe lashes and for her aunt, Lady Hao, to be sold off alongside her. During the punishment, the first lady commanded all servants to gather in the courtyard to witness the execution. A dense crowd filled the space. Each crack of the thick, waist-wide board sent spatters of blood flying, making spectators' legs grow weak. Punishing servants usually meant docking their monthly wages or confining them to the woodshed. Corporal punishment was rarely used. But now, things were different. To utterly extinguish any restless thoughts, to intimidate those below who were stirring with discontent, the household was determined to make an example of them. This bloody spectacle proved astonishingly effective. Several young maids had already covered their eyes in terror. Even the matrons in charge paled, wringing their handkerchiefs tightly. As for Yunyang, she was instantly struck dumb with terror. By the 15th stroke of the board, Hao Yingying's skirt was soaked through with blood. Her breath was faint as she murmured indistinctly, her unfocused gaze unable to fix on anyone. Yet I felt she was staring straight at me, her lips clearly forming the words, "Why did you?" From that night onward, nightmares haunted me, forever replaying that bloody scene. My young master would always hold me close and soothe me. It's all my fault for spoiling that wretched servant, making her grow such audacious thoughts. But she was worthless anyway. Dead is dead. Ah, Ying, you mustn't be afraid anymore. A tender smile played on his lips. Yet each word pierced me like an icy spike, sending shivers down my spine. Only then did I suddenly awaken from my delusion. Such was always the master's way. When bestowing favors, he was like a benevolent deity demanding gratitude. When meting out punishment, he was like the king of hell demanding lives, if death came at midnight. Who dared keep you alive till dawn? I had naively wallowed in the young master's affection, forgetting my place entirely. Those petty jealousies. Those foolish demands that he love only me for all eternity, how laughable they seem now. Hadn't Hao Ying also been cherished by the young master? Yet today she faces death by beating for her insolence. Yunyang grew up under the old lady's care, her clothes and comforts surpassing even the favored concubines. Yet when the master grew angry, she was sold off without a second thought. Tomorrow. Why couldn't the same happen to me? What sets me apart from them? We are but objects in our master's eyes, to be disposed of at their whim. The 7th day of the 5th month, an auspicious day for weddings. 10 miles of crimson wedding processions stretched before the home mansion, the joyous music shaking the heavens. As the young mistress Xie Lin's palanquin slowly entered the estate amid the throng, I slipped out through a side gate, clutching my meager belongings. Lu Chao had been waiting at the alley entrance. We went straight to the magistrate's office. He efficiently had my slave registration revoked and submitted the prepared marriage contract for official filing. In less than half a day, I transformed from a servant of the Marquis's household into Lu Chao's legally wedded wife. He led me to our newly acquired small courtyard, a single courtyard residence facing the street. Pushing open the door, I was met with a sea of festive red. Lanterns hung high. Double happiness characters adorned the windows, the place was bustling with lively decorations. Lu Chao's ears flushed crimson as he fidgeted. Xiaoying. I arranged all this myself. It's my first time doing such things. I hope it suits your taste? I smiled softly, letting him lead me by the hand into the main hall. On the table lay neatly arranged wedding wine, festive pastries, several bolts of fine fabric, and a set of gilded jewelry. Lu Chao clasped my hand tightly. Xiaoying, this is all I own. Though modest, I'll work twice as hard to give you a good life. Good. I nodded firmly. Together, we'll make our days as bright and prosperous as this. Tonight I've invited our revered teacher to officiate, along with neighbors and friends, all to witness our ceremony. His eyes sparkled. Come. There's one more thing I wish to show you. Following Lu Chao into the inner chamber, I found it meticulously arranged according to wedding chamber tradition. The bed was strewn with red dates, peanuts, longan, and lotus seeds. Before the dressing table stood a pristine set of wedding robes, neatly laid out. I stared at him in disbelief. How could a man like you know these wedding customs? He lowered his head shyly. I specifically asked the herbalist at the clinic. How could a groom personally arrange these things? My eyes stung with warmth. Why not? He suddenly looked up, his eyes burning with intensity. What other wives have, mine shall have as well. That night, dressed in the wedding gown he had meticulously prepared, I bowed 3 times to heaven and earth with him beneath the glow of red candles. Then entered the bridal chamber together. A night of passion passed. And when I awoke, the sun was already high in the sky. Such restful sleep had eluded me for so long. My entire body felt relaxed. Even my breath felt crisp and clear. By my pillow lay a note from Lu Chao. My dear, I'm off to the clinic. Warm meal on the stove, don't forget to eat. Holding the note, a blush crept onto my cheeks. After breakfast, I began pondering ways to make a living. During my years at the home mansion, I honed my soup-making skills to cater to the young master's aversion to greasy foods during his nightly studies. Yesterday, while chatting with Lu Chao, I mentioned my plan to set up a food stall. His eyes lit up at the idea. He explained that the clinic often incorporates medicinal herbs into meals for therapeutic purposes. However, the taste of these medicinal dishes was rather poor, resulting in few customers. If I could make medicinal dishes both nourishing and palatable, we could surely turn things around. We hit it off immediately. He listed several recipes using ingredients that are both medicinal and edible, while I focused on perfecting the cooking techniques. Such hopeful days were beyond my wildest dreams back then. Fueled by enthusiasm, I soon developed a porridge and 2 soups, all designed to replenish qi and nourish blood. Lu Chao tasted them and praised them repeatedly. Even neighbors who tried them declared the flavors exquisite. I entrusted the recipes to Aunt Yu next door, whose son worked at the city's largest restaurant, to sell them there. I'd hoped 10 taels would be a blessing, but the shrewd proprietor offered 75 taels, 25 per recipe, on the condition of exclusive supply. Holding that snow-white silver, I felt an unprecedented surge of joy. I immediately took 10 taels and ingots to thank Aunt Yu personally. Back when I was a servant in the home mansion, I never dreamed I'd one day earn silver through my own skills. Even less did I expect that this money-making business would come so naturally to me. Far easier than for others. I recall the most favored concubine in the mansion received no more than 3 taels of silver monthly, though she received holiday gifts. After paying servants and buying finery, her annual savings couldn't match the profit from a single one of my prescriptions. I knew well that one couldn't live off savings forever, so I studied diligently every day, never slacking off. One day, as I was testing my newly developed Angelica and astragalus black chicken soup in my room, a knock sounded at the door. Opening it, I froze in place. Standing tall and graceful outside was none other than the young master of the Marquis's household. Young master. You. My throat tightened, the rest of the words catching in my throat. What? He stood with his hands behind his back, his expression unreadable. Awing. You won't even offer me a cup of tea now? I didn't want to let him in, but with him already there, I could only step aside. Please come in, young master. He strode into the courtyard, his gaze sweeping over the simple surroundings. Suddenly, he chuckled softly. Awing. Did you abandon me just to live like this? My heart tightened. This doesn't bode well. His words carried hidden meaning. If I didn't handle this carefully today, trouble would surely follow. Catching the steam rising from the stove out of the corner of my eye, I hurriedly said, Master, please have a seat. I ladled a bowl of Angelica and astragalus black chicken soup and handed it over, lowering my head as I offered the spoon. Please try it. Only then did he smile. At least you have some sense of duty, remembering I love the soups you make. After taking a small sip, his brow furrowed slightly. Why are there herbs in this soup? I cautiously probed. Does the flavor suit your taste, young master? The herbal fragrance was crisp and clean, cutting through the richness of the chicken broth. He gave a slight nod and drank the entire bowl. Setting down the spoon, he said, Considering you've been waiting here daily to serve soup, I'll overlook it today. Pack your things. Come with me back to the manor. I took a step back, shaking my head. Young master, I've redeemed myself and married. I cannot return. His expression turned cold. Marriage is no longer relevant. Once back at the manor, I'll see you vindicated. Young master, I raised my voice. I am now a married woman. This is my home. There's no way I'd return to be a servant again. The young master suddenly chuckled softly, his fingertips tracing the rim of his bowl. So that's what this is about. The concubine you once desired was merely a servant to attend to you. I told you long ago, once Linner enters the household, I would elevate you to concubine. After you return with me, you would be a proper mistress. I took a step back, my voice barely audible. Young master, I did indeed long for days to become your concubine. But now, I am now a legally wedded wife. I no longer wish to, nor can I ever be another man's concubine. The young master's expression darkened abruptly. He sneered coldly. What? Do you still harbor delusions of becoming the Marquis's wife? Preposterous. If I, the legitimate son of the Marquis, were to marry a maid as my principal wife, Wouldn't I become the laughingstock of the entire capital? I lowered my head. Silent. Seeing my silence, his tone softened abruptly. Very well. I spoke too harshly just now. Since you've redeemed yourself, I'll grant you the status of a proper concubine. Is that acceptable? He reached out to brush my hair, his fingers lingering. You promised to stay by my side for life. You must not break your word. I snapped my head up, my pupils tightening. A proper concubine? That means being recorded in the family registry, not being sold off at will. My fingertips dug deep into my palm. Finally, gritting my teeth, I said, Master's kindness is deeply appreciated. Ing is grateful. But I already have a husband. He treats me very well. I'm afraid I cannot. Fine. Very fine. The young master erupted in fury, kicking over a nearby wooden stool. So it was for some lowly man. I'll have him beaten to death this very moment. See what excuses you'll come up with then. The image of Hao Ying being beaten to death flashed before my eyes, draining all color from my face. I knew the young master was consumed by murderous intent. For now, I must steady him before devising a plan. Young master, please reconsider. I urgently pressed his sleeve. This is not the Marquis's estate. If a death occurs here, the authorities will investigate. My fingers tightened on his sleeve. For someone as insignificant as Ying, it's not worth it. His expression softened slightly as he lifted his hand to grip my chin. At least you still care about your master. Had you uttered another word defending that wild man just now? I stepped forward, grabbing the hem of his sleeve as I had done countless times before. When I lifted my face, my eyes were already brimming with pleading. Master, would you grant me a few days? The marriage contract is registered with the authorities. We must follow proper procedure for the divorce. Ying doesn't want outsiders to gossip. Saying, the young master forcibly took another man's wife. Before I could finish, he pulled me into his embrace. Suppressing my trembling, I continued, there's one more thing. Could we keep my return to the estate quiet for now? I wish to apologize to the old madam first. She graciously allowed me to leave the estate back then, and now I must return. As you wish. He brushed a stray strand of hair from my temple, his expression unexpectedly tender. Everything as you wish. Before his words faded, his hand began to wander restlessly downward. My heart pounded wildly. In broad daylight, in someone else's home, he dared to be so brazen. I quickly seized his wrist and used his momentum to step back half a pace. Young master. My voice carried just the right amount of feigned embarrassment and annoyance. This is a common courtyard. Walls have ears. If the neighbors see, we'll discuss it once we return to the manor. The young master arched an eyebrow, a smile playing on his lips as his fingertips traced the bones of my wrist. Ying has learned to play coy, hasn't she? He leaned in suddenly, his warm breath tickling my ear. But I suppressed a wave of nausea and pressed my lips lightly to his in a swift peck. Only then did he release his grip with satisfaction, pulling a gold coin from his robe and slipping it into my palm. Buy whatever you fancy these days, he said, his gaze lingering suggestively over the room's furnishings. Don't shortchange yourself. As the door closed behind him, I watched his receding figure, a wave of desolation washing over me. Young master truly had feelings for me. He sought me out, disregarding my status as a married woman, even offering me the position of a legitimate concubine. Such affection, in times past, would have made me smile in my dreams. Back then, I only wished for a place to call home. To receive even a fraction of his sincerity felt like a stroke of immense fortune. But now, this very sincerity has become a death sentence. The mistress of a noble household may tolerate her husband taking concubines, but she cannot bear him truly cherishing a mistress born of lowly origins. When his affection fades, my time will be up. Not to mention, I can now support myself with my own hands. Why return to being a plaything at others' mercy? I refuse to live another day with my life hanging in the balance. Gazing at the gold ingot left by the young master, my mind was already set on a plan. 3 days later, my anxious heart finally settled. Aunt Yu's son hurriedly pushed open my courtyard gate. "Mrs. Liu, the shopkeeper requests your presence at the Wangfu Pavilion." I adjusted my clothes slightly and stepped into that tavern once more. 3 days ago, just after the young master left, I brought freshly simmered chicken soup here seeking the proprietor. The proprietor, around 40, wore a face of gentle kindness. Madame Liu usually sends others to sell the ingredients. "What important matter brings you here personally today?" I curtsied. "Indeed, I have a matter to inquire about. Might you know which noble household in the capital most needs medicinal cuisine? I've recently acquired a nourishing recipe, ideal for convalescence." My fingers lightly brushed my belly as my voice softened further. "To be honest, our family is poor. I wish to save more silver, to raise my children well." With that, I presented the gold ingot given by the young master along with the chicken soup. The shopkeeper silently accepted it. After tasting the soup, a sharp gleam flashed in his eyes. Madame Liu, return home and await news. When they met again that day, the shopkeeper greeted her with a ruddy glow. "Madame Liu, wonderful news. After tasting your soup, the third prince's consort specifically requested you come to the mansion as her cook." The current emperor had passed 70, and the third prince was also in his 50s. Though the third prince's second wife is already a grandmother, a severe cold last year left her weakened. Fortunately, the chicken soup brought back from Wangfula gradually restored her health. Coupled with the innkeeper's persuasive words, this opportunity came my way. The third prince is deeply devoted to music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and the princess consort is also a refined and cultured lady. As the shopkeeper led the way, he chattered on about how generously the household treated its servants, truly a fortunate place for a young woman to find work. Arriving at the palace's side gate, even with my preparation, I was still stunned by its grandeur. Even the secondary entrance towered more majestically than the main gate of an ordinary household. Steward Zhou ushered me into the small kitchen. This humble hearth would be my path to a new life. I must present myself before the princess consort without delay. My fingertips lightly pinched the silver coins tucked within my sleeve. Without a flicker of emotion, I stepped forward half a pace, using the motion of my bow to slip the coins into Steward Zhou's sleeve. "Steward Zhou," I murmured, my eyes and brows submissive. "This servant has only just arrived and is merely a temporary kitchen helper. Once the princess consort's health is restored, this task will come to an end. Should anything go amiss during this time?" Before I could finish, I felt a slight weight on my sleeve. A sharp gleam flashed in Steward Zhou's eyes as he stroked his beard and chuckled. "You're too kind, young lady. The princess consort is most benevolent. Just serve her diligently." Over a month passed in the blink of an eye. At the hour of the pig, Steward Zhou entered the kitchen and saw me still bustling about the stove. He looked surprised. "Why are you still here, Miss Liu? You'll be breaking the curfew if you linger any longer." I wiped the sweat from my brow and gave a sheepish smile. "I heard the princess consort couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd prepare a calming soup." I completely lost track of time. Steward Zhou understood and personally presented the broth to the princess. That night, the princess indeed slept soundly until dawn. From then on, under the pretext of tending to the soothing broth, I was permitted to stay overnight in the mansion. The compassionate princess even assigned me a separate servant's quarters, sparing me the inconvenience of sharing a room. After receiving my letter, Lu Chao also claimed to be studying medical theory and began sleeping on a makeshift bed in the clinic. I heard the young master came looking for me, but neighbors only knew I worked at the prince's residence. With 4 imperial princes' mansions in the capital. Where would he even begin searching? The opportunity came sooner than expected. The princess's headaches had flared up again recently, and no remedy seemed to work. While delivering a calming decoction, I gently suggested, "My husband possesses some medical knowledge. He often advises me on medicinal cuisine. If your highness would not consider it too crude." Rubbing her temples, the princess consort gave a slight nod. A day later, Lu Chao entered the palace carrying his medicine chest. His pulse diagnosis was steady and composed. Yet the prescription he wrote was unconventional. It centered on massage therapy, with herbal decoctions as a secondary treatment. He taught the massage techniques to the matron attending the princess. After 3 days of treatment, the princess's headaches significantly subsided. From then on, Lu Chao gained the princess's favor and was frequently summoned to the mansion for consultations. Over time, my husband and I accumulated considerable rewards. Yet residing in the prince's mansion was not a long-term solution. Lu Chao and I discussed selling our current courtyard and purchasing a street-facing shop instead. The front hall could house a medicinal cuisine and consultation shop, while the back courtyard would be our home. This way, we'd have a livelihood and avoid the young master's entanglements. Receiving my brother's letter only strengthened this resolve. 16. It turned out that over the years, my younger brother had risen to the rank of 7th grade deputy captain in the military. Soon, he would be transferred to the capital to serve as a deputy guard in the Imperial Guard. Back when we fled during the turmoil, I was on the brink of death. With a heavy heart, I pushed him away and said, "Don't worry about your elder sister. Save yourself." Yet that 10-year-old boy stubbornly hoisted me onto his back and crawled through mountains of corpses and seas of blood to escape. When we parted, I believed we would never see each other again in this lifetime. Fortunately, I entered the Ko household and enjoyed several years of peaceful existence. But ever since I heard he had joined the army, my heart hung in suspense day after day, and I lay awake night after night. Now to learn he is not only safe but returning to the capital for a post. No longer forced to live by the sword, holding the letter. My tears blurred the ink. In the 2nd month after opening the shop, the princess consort hosted a flower-scattering banquet, specifically requesting my signature pastry. I meticulously prepared a porridge of poria and Chinese yam, shaping the pastry into blossoms. Its delicate fragrance concealed medicinal properties. Guests marveled at the taste. The princess consort beckoned with a smile, quickly summoned the Liu family's mistress to meet us. She joyfully introduced me to noblewomen fascinated by medicinal cuisine. As I curtsied in greeting, my peripheral vision caught a piercing stare across the table. The young master's teacup jerked violently, nearly spilling its contents onto his brocade robe. His gaze fixed on me, then shifted to Lu Chao, who stood nearby explaining medicinal principles to the guests. His expression darkened. I had long anticipated this day and planned meticulously for it. To establish myself in the capital, I couldn't spend my life hiding forever. I understood the ways of the aristocracy. What they valued most was nothing but face. Using my medicinal cuisine skills, I built a reputation among the elite. I deliberately let everyone know I was the cook at the Liu family's medicinal cuisine shop. Yet not just any ordinary cook. Which of those princes and nobles never suffered a headache or fever? Who among them didn't need tonics and nourishment? To them, I became a somewhat useful, yet ultimately inconsequential presence. No matter how resourceful the young master might be, he could never quietly bring a cook who'd been seen among the elite and gained some renown into the mansion as a concubine. After all, the nobility of the capital dread nothing more than losing face. I avoided the young master's gaze, knowing he must now recognize the person before him was Haiying, who could stand on her own 2 feet with her skills. No longer the littling whose fate he could decide with a flick of his finger. In the afternoon, the wind chime outside the shop suddenly rang urgently. I looked up to see the young master standing at the doorway, his gaze dark and menacing as he stared at Lu Chao, who was busy dispensing medicine. Given the young master's intense concern for appearances, I hadn't expected him to return. This must be Dr. Lu? The young master's eyes darted between Lu Chao and me, already tinged with anger. I've heard of your exceptional medical skills. I've come specifically to seek your guidance. Lu Chao calmly shielded me behind him, clasping his hands respectfully. May I ask, young master, are you here for a consultation or to purchase medicine? Dr. Lu. The young master sneered. I've come to learn your secrets of keeping a wife in line. I wonder, do you and your virtuous wife behind you still live in perfect harmony? Lu Chao replied calmly. What need is there for control between husband and wife? Mutual care and support through thick and thin naturally bind us for a lifetime. A lifetime? The young master suddenly burst into laughter, his chuckle carrying a bone-chilling coldness. Do you know that your virtuous wife once promised me a lifetime at the Ke residence? What? Is she deceiving you now? Young Master Ku. Lu Chao stepped closer, shielding me with his body. His voice was steady and firm. When my wife was in your household, she was merely fulfilling her duties as a servant. I ask you to choose your words carefully. He gestured politely. This humble establishment is not suited for guests today. Please take your leave. The young master's gaze fell upon my hand, clutching Lu Chao's sleeve tightly. Watch your words. His folding fan snapped shut. There's a vermilion birthmark on her collarbone. Do you believe me now? Shut it! Lu Chao suddenly roared. Though I, Lu Chao, am poor and lowly, I know true love means protecting her, not humiliating her in public. Have you considered where such words would place her if they spread? Spit can kill. Are you trying to drive her to death? Lu Chao suddenly seized a pair of scissors and pressed them against his throat. If you utter another word of insult toward my wife today, I will spill my blood right here. I am but a commoner, and I can only protect my wife with my life. But I will also use my life to make the entire capital know how the young master of the Ke family forced an innocent woman into prostitution. I cried out in alarm, trying to stop him, but he silenced me with a single glance. The young master's face instantly turned deathly pale, and he staggered back half a step. He stared at me intently, his voice tinged with pleading, awing. If you'll only come back, I'll forget everything that happened. We can pretend nothing ever occurred. How could we pretend nothing happened? Now I can support myself with my own hands, cherished by a husband who knows my needs. Such a life was once beyond my wildest dreams. I shook my head firmly. I won't return. A flicker of panic crossed the young master's eyes, but he forced himself to remain composed. What happened between us, your current husband knows about it now. Are you sure he'll still love you? Besides me, who else in this world would want you? Young master. I took a deep breath, tears welling in my eyes. During those years in the mansion, I was truly grateful for your favor, and I once genuinely wanted to spend my life with you. But what happened to Hao Ying terrified me. I feared that bowl after bowl of contraceptive soup would eventually kill me. More than that, I dreaded the day when your favor faded, then my life would be as worthless as an insect's. How can you compare yourself to her? The young master stepped forward urgently. I truly love you. I would never let you end up like that. I shook my head with a bitter smile. Is that so? Then do you know that before your wedding, when the old lady summoned me to choose a concubine, the young mistress was hiding behind the screen? Had I uttered a single wrong word that day, I fear you would have returned to find my corpse. The young master was struck as if by lightning, his entire frame slumping inward, gazing at my tear-streaked face. His voice suddenly choked, awing. I'm sorry. I just didn't want to lose you. At that moment, Lu Chao's warm palm firmly enveloped my trembling fingers. I wiped away my tears and met the young master's gaze directly. If you truly feel you've wronged me, then please, never appear before me again. Only after the horse hooves faded into the distance did the scissors in Lu Chao's hand clatter to the floor. I hurriedly pressed a handkerchief against the bloodstain on his neck, but he pulled me tightly into his embrace. No need for words, my lady. His warm breath brushed my ear, cutting off my reply. In this world, a woman's path is already arduous. No one has the right to blame you. The next morning, the entire street awoke to the clamor of gongs and drums. The steward of the Ku household personally arrived with attendants, bearing a brocade banner embroidered with the words "Masterful Hands, Compassionate Heart." A servant handed me a rosewood box, its interior neatly stacked with premium medicinal herbs, along with a handwritten note from the young master. I'm sorry. If you ever face hardship, come to me. Our medicinal cuisine shop had firmly established its reputation throughout the capital. For the wealthy and noble, we meticulously crafted premium tonics like ginseng and bird's nest soup, presented in elegant food boxes. For the common folk, we offered affordable yet wholesome items like yam cakes, neatly wrapped in oil paper. Seeing the thriving business, the princess consort generously funded the opening of our second shop. On the day our third branch opened, a squadron of ironclad cavalry abruptly halted before the storefront. The young general at their head dismounted, the glint of his armor blinding to the eye. Sister! My brother yanked off his helmet, his smile unchanged from years past. The end.